No more traffic jams, telephones, emails, or faxes. Just lie on the beach.
Frank, I'm sorry, but I don't know that I can participate in this segment because I've been advised to abstain. These are cans of stain, am I right?
Correct, and I'm gonna, many customers come into home centers because they want to stain their furniture, and they don't realize the different kinds of stain. Of course, you have interior stains, exterior stains, but there are two types. One is called penetrating, and the other one is called gel. Now, penetrating stain, here I have an example. Here's a can. It's very, it's very liquidy.
Liquidy. Let me see if I can get that.
Yeah. So, and it's great for grains that absorb. So if I put a paintbrush into penetrating stain.
It's very watery.
Yes, and then, so let's say I have a piece of oak.
Okay.
I put it on and you can see.
Now, this is the penetrating?
This is penetrating. Okay, but it's always recommended, whether you're using penetrating or gloss stain, that after you've let it set for a few minutes, take a dry, lint-free rag and wipe it. Wipe off the excess, and that brings the grain out. Now,
That's beautiful.
Right, and if you decide that, hey, you know what, it's a little bit too light, you can always put another coat.
Okay.
Now, gel stains are...
Question before you move on.
Go ahead.
If you were to let this sit and then apply another application here, is there a chance that they wouldn't match?
Not if you wipe it with a rag.
Okay.
But if you were to just brush it on, you're right, it could be.
Okay, so be careful, a little careful.
Correct.
Not much.
Now, gel stains,
This
as you
is
can see,
much thicker.
very, very thick. Like if I put a paintbrush into this, you can see it's like gelatin.
Yeah, look at that.
So quite often what people will do is, you could still apply it with a brush, but they'll take a rag, put it into the stain, and then wipe it on. This one is a little bit different color than the other stain.
Yeah.
And as you can see, and again, this is more for grains where the wood does not penetrate that easy. So you're wiping it into the grain.
Would you suggest a sample piece of wood and...
Of course, you're going to practice
test
before.
first?
Yeah.
I would have done, yeah.
You would.
It's obvious to you, Frank, but...
You would test. And you can see it's pretty simple. The main
This
thing...
looks like two different pieces of wood, and it's the same one.
Yeah, but it's, of course I have two different colors of stain here.
Yeah, but I'm saying you could get,
Correct.
if you had one wall this side and one wall, and you did them differently, you got...
Correct. And then the key thing to remember is you must sandpaper your wood before you put the stain.
Really?
Oh, yeah, because you want the surface to be as smooth as possible. Because what happens, stain will raise the grain. So after this has dried, you feel the surface, it might feel a little rough. So again, what they recommend, because this is not going to have a shine, so you're going to have to put a polyurethane coating if you want to make it, weather resistant, waterproof. So you would go back with either 4-0 steel wool and buff it, or a very, very fine, maybe 300 grit sandpaper. And then you can put your varnish on top of it.
But Frank, if you're doing a whole wall, I mean, you're saying you sand the whole wall.
Yeah, well,
no
this is for furniture.
Oh,
now,
furniture.
Naturally, if I'm staining a wall in a home, the better you have it prepped, the better the finish will be. Yeah? Okay. So you have to sand first.
By the way, if anyone wants to stain their furniture, they just come to a party at my house.
Right.
All our furniture is stained.
Now,
I'm joking.
The problem is, today,
a
lot of stuff that is sold is made out of particle board. Like here I have a sample.
Is particle board bad?
Well, no, not necessarily, because
it's cheap.
It's cheap, but you can't stain it because
Why?
there is no grain to it.
Oh, if you're going to bring out the grain
inside. If I was to put stain on this,
can we try a little?
All you're going to have is a brown colored particle board. So here I put now I take the rag.
Yeah.
I'll wipe that off.
There's no grain.
It's
just no grain.
But there is a means where you could make a grain. And it's a technique that you just practice with. So here, what you basically do first of all is paint the particle board with a base coat.
Okay.
So here is like a tan colored base coat. And then what I'm going to do now is I'm going to take some of the stain.
Which one?
Well, I could use either one. I could use penetrating or gel stain. And then I'm going to apply it on top
The particle board.
The
on the
particle board.
paint, the painted
Right,
particle
on
board.
the painted surface.
Okay.
So here,
Now,
let me get a little bit more.
wouldn't you just have a larger brown spot?
No, watch what happens here.
Uh-oh, here we go.
Now this is where ingenuity and practice and uniqueness comes in, because everybody can use a different tool to grain this.
To grain it.
Yeah. So one option is, you could use, the idea to get the grain is to remove some of the stain from the board. So let's say I took just a brush like this,
Yeah.
and I just ran it right across the top. Okay, what you can see is what I'm doing here is I'm
Kind
streaking
of
it.
looks like grain.
Yeah, it does, but if you really wanted to create a heavy grain, like pine, you could just take a piece of plastic, cut grooves in it at any
Yeah.
angle. And if I was to go ahead and just put this like this, and then just move it back and forth, just like that, and then come back
Yeah.
with the brush and just lightly go over it, you can see that I'm creating wood grain. See,
At
when that dries, it'll look like a real piece of wood.
I think we're talking resale value. That's a great trick.
Yeah. And let's say I didn't like it.
Yeah.
As long as I work quickly within 5-10 minutes, I could take a rag
Yeah.
and wipe it right off and start all over.
And you could cut this piece to suit your own particular,
any-
do
any.
try
Right.
to make a swirly one down here and see.
I mean, of course, they do make, graining tools.
yeah.
They make actual graining tool, and then of course it all depends on how much pressure you put on it. How
well,
you grain it.
you could. Wow, that's creative.
Yeah, and there's a lot of women, not men,
Yeah.
who like to do this.
Yeah, Mia. Honey, you like play with the stain?
Right? They call it antiquing. They call
Yeah.
it glazing.
Sure. And I mean, if you applied this to, let's say, a dresser, a regular plain dresser, suddenly you could, if you practiced, you could make it look like
Of course
color.
you could. First you would paint it with a base coat.
Yeah.
That would be lighter than the stain you're applying, so you get the contrast.
And you could play with the kind of paint or whatever.
Any color you want.
Endless.
Endless amount of colors to choose from.
Oh, and then if you like go beach and look different than everyone else.
Copper tone, yeah.
Copper tone. Frank, that's amazing. From this, look at that,
Yeah.
to that.
Right.
Beautiful.